John always believed he had the perfect marriage. He and Sarah had been together for 10 years, building a life filled with laughter, shared dreams, and what he thought was unbreakable trust. They had a beautiful home, 2 wonderful kids, and a rhythm to their lives that felt comfortable and secure. But over the past few months, a subtle chill had crept into their home, a quiet dissonance in their once harmonious life. John tried his best to ignore it, told himself it was just stress, the normal ebb and flow of a long-term relationship. The signs were small at first, almost too insignificant to notice. Sarah started working late more often. Her phone became an extension of her hand, always angled away from him, and her laughter once a constant melody in. Their house was now reserved for texts that would make her smile mysteriously. John would ask who she was texting. She'd wave a dismissive hand and say, "Oh, just work stuff," or just a group chat with the girls. He wanted to believe her. He really did. So he pushed the nagging voice of doubt to the back of his mind. He tried to reignite the spark. He planned date nights, brought home her favorite flowers, and offered to take the kids for the weekend so she could have some time to herself. Each gesture was met with a polite but distant smile. She would thank him, but her eyes wouldn't light up the way they used to. The physical distance between them grew as well. The casual touches, the spontaneous hugs, the hand-holding while watching TV, they all slowly vanished, leaving a void that felt vast and cold. John felt like he was living with a polite stranger, someone who looked like his wife, but had none of her warmth. One night, he woke up at 2 a.m., and the space beside him was empty. He found Sarah in the living room, bathed in the blue glow of her phone screen. When she saw him, she jumped, quickly locking the screen. "Couldn't sleep," she mumbled, avoiding his gaze. The excuse felt thin, rehearsed. The suspicion he had been suppressing for so long began to bubble to the surface, hot and painful. He asked her if everything was okay, if there was something she wanted to talk about. She just shook her head, said she was tired, and went back to bed, leaving John standing alone in the dark, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and dread. The next day, John decided he couldn't live in this state of uncertainty anymore. He told himself he was being paranoid, that he needed to stop overthinking. But the doubt was like a poison, seeping into every corner of his mind. He needed proof, or at least something to quiet the storm inside him. He remembered Sarah mentioning a new cafe she loved going to for her solo work sessions. He hated the idea of spying on his own wife. It felt like a betrayal in itself, but he was desperate. The breaking point, the one mistake that would unravel everything, came on a Tuesday afternoon. Sarah had told him she was heading to a team-building workshop that would last all day. She kissed him goodbye, a quick, passionless peck on the cheek, and left. A few hours later, John was driving home from an appointment when he saw Sarah's car parked outside that very cafe she claimed to love for work. This was miles away from where her workshop was supposed to be. Curiosity and a sickening sense of dread took over. He parked across the street, his hands shaking. He told himself she was just grabbing a coffee. He waited. Minutes stretched into an eternity. Then he saw her. She walked out of the cafe laughing, her head tilted back in a way he hadn't seen in years. But she wasn't alone. A man was with her, his arm wrapped possessively around her waist. John didn't recognize him. The man leaned down and kissed her, a long, lingering kiss that was anything but friendly. And Sarah kissed him back, melting into his embrace. The world seemed to stop. The street noise faded into a dull roar in John's ears. He was watching a scene from a movie, a nightmare he couldn't wake up from. It wasn't a work colleague. It wasn't a group chat with the girls. It was this. John felt a strange calm wash over him, the kind that comes after the worst has already happened. There was no more doubt, no more uncertainty. There was only the cold, hard, shattering truth. He watched them get into the man's car and drive away, leaving Sarah's car behind. He didn't follow. He just sat there in his own car, staring at the empty space where they had stood. All the small signs, the late nights, the guarded phone, the emotional distance, they all clicked into place, forming a picture he could no longer ignore. He drove home in a daze. The house felt alien, a stage set for a play that had just ended. Though the photos on the wall of their happy family seemed to mock him, he thought about their kids, their life, the 10 years they had built together. Was it all a lie? How long had this been going on? The questions swirled in his head, but he had no answers. That evening when Sarah came home, she was humming, looking happier than she had in months. She told him the workshop was incredibly rejuvenating. John just looked at her, seeing her for the first time in a long time, not as his wife, but as a stranger who had broken his heart. He didn't confront her right away. He needed a plan. He spent the next few days in a fog, going through the motions of their life, while his mind worked overtime. The pain was immense, a physical ache in his chest. But underneath the pain, a quiet resolve was hardening. He deserved better. His kids deserved better. He started gathering evidence, not out of spite, but out of a need for self-preservation. He contacted a lawyer, learning about his rights and options. He felt a strange sense of empowerment taking control of a situation that had made him feel so powerless. The confrontation finally happened one evening. He calmly asked her to sit down. He didn't yell. He didn't cry. Simply said, "I know about you and him, Sarah." The color drained from her face. The confident, happy facade she had been wearing for months crumbled in an instant, revealing the guilt and fear beneath. She started with denials, but they were weak and faltered under his steady gaze. He told her he had seen them at the cafe. There was no escaping it. The dam broke. The confessions came tumbling out, mixed with tears and excuses. It had been going on for 6 months. The man was a new client at her firm. She said she felt neglected, that their marriage had lost its spark. John listened, but her words felt hollow. She hadn't tried to talk to him. She hadn't suggested counseling. She had just chosen to betray him. She begged for forgiveness, promising it was a mistake and that it was over. But John knew, deep down, that the trust, the very foundation of their marriage, was gone. It had been shattered into a million pieces outside that cafe. The weeks that followed were the hardest of his life. Telling the kids, separating their lives, navigating the legal process, it was a painful, messy ordeal. There were days when the anger and sadness threatened to consume him. But he focused on his children, pouring all his love and energy into being the stable parent they needed. He found strength he never knew he had. He started therapy, talking through the betrayal and learning to process his grief. He rediscovered old hobbies and reconnected with friends he had drifted away from. Slowly, very slowly, the storm began to pass. John learned that sometimes the end of one chapter is the necessary beginning of another. He realized that ignoring the signs hadn't protected him from the pain. It had only prolonged the inevitable and allowed the deception to continue. His one mistake wasn't a mistake at all. It was the moment he chose to stop ignoring the truth and face reality. It was a painful awakening, but it was also the first step toward his own healing and a future where he could trust again, starting with trusting himself. He learned that while you can't control another person's actions, you can control how you respond, and in that response lies your power and your path forward. If you or someone you know is going through a difficult time in a relationship or struggling with mental health, please know that help is available. Talking to a therapist or a trusted friend can make all the difference. Thank you for listening to this story. If it resonated with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more content. Take care of yourselves.